Hey everyone, welcome back to another campus product update. We are talking about release for November of 2025. I have our VP of Client Services, Jess Ostrom, and our VP of Product, Alex Morset. Thank you both for joining as always. Happy November, Thanksgiving month. Excited to talk about what we got here ahead of us. So the biggest one I know that we're really excited about, for many that know about our historical use of Xandr as a primary DSP, formerly AppNexus, that product being sunset and deprecated this upcoming winter by Microsoft. We've been going through a transition and a migration over to the Trade Desk as our primary DSP, which is one of multiple DSPs here at KORTX. But getting to a spot now where there will be no interruption with reporting has been a major priority for Alex and team. So we're excited to share that as the first update here. So Josh, why don't you walk into the new Trade Desk reporting, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so like you said, as part of this transition, we launched a new programmatic overview report with Trade Desk data. This report mirrors our previous programmatic overview report, but has a couple of upgrades or enhancements, I'd say. So the first one is creative previews. I think I'm most excited for this because it's something I know our clients are going to love. In fact, I think I've had a few clients over the past couple of years request this feature. So seeing it come to fruition is really cool. In the creative reporting that you see here, you'll see thumbnails of each creative that you can click to expand into a full preview. And in this preview, it includes any animation. If it's a video, the video will play with full sound. You'll click through to it, it'll open the website. So really cool way to QA your creative. You know, historically, instead of having a person or a user have to reference the name of a creative in this report and then look in their own internal folder for the creative, this is just a really easy way for them to see everything in one spot. Another new feature I just want to quickly highlight in here as well is the separation of primary site actions from total site actions. So we often measure multiple site activities, but not all would be counted towards, say, like a CPA goal. Those are usually like your form fills, phone calls, or maybe any sort of desirable action that we're most likely optimizing toward. So previously, campus users would have to filter by the specific pixel or tag that they wanted to see reporting against. Now with the Trade Desk, we actually support the ability to automatically have these bucketed into their own columns, just making it easier to analyze the data. I just want to also note, you could still view site activity by individual pixel within the site activity reporting right here as well, just like you could before.
Great. Alex, any user notes just as they're thinking of functionality or usability here?
No, on the creative, I think, Jess covered that in pretty good detail. That preview is available for any ad type. So not only static display units, but also dynamic units and video units as well. So as you'll see, some of the thumbnails, since this is a dynamic unit, look a little different than when you pull up the full preview, because obviously things are moving around and sliding in. So just a call out there. Same with the video, as we saw. If you launch a video creative, you'll get a video ad player and you'll be able to see the video play, like Jess said, with sound. So pretty cool feature there. And then on the primary and total site activities, yeah, as Jess mentioned, there is no longer a pixel conversion event site activity filter at the top. However, you do see a breakout, like Jess said, here in the site activity tab. And then jumping over to line items and all your other cuts, you will see, again, primary site activities broken out versus total. Generally, primary site activities is 1, 2, potentially 3 different pixels that our ops team and the client have talked through as the primary thing that we're trying to push for the campaign. But yeah, that's kind of how that all works.
Great. And still supporting, as we can see in this screenshot, the ability to have audience breakouts within line items, so understanding which segments are performing within that line item, and then geographic delivery and domain delivery. So still showing the full transparency of where impressions are being served, even down to the postal code level and then domain level. So great to leave that level of transparency within the tool. Great. Moving over, I know as we talked about, again, the migration to the Trade Desk, now having the ability to support audiences is fully detailed in there. So Jess, can you talk about what a user may experience now compared to what they used to see in this section of Campus?
Yeah, so like you said, within this release, we also added audience reporting for Trade Desk audiences. So you'll see, like what you see right here, these are actually all Trade Desk audiences integrated into this audience taxonomy page. Historically, this page only showed, if you click into one of them, it used to only show total audience counts and was only available for first-party audiences. The Trade Desk not only supports this reporting beyond first-party audience, offering it for third-party, but it also provides a deeper breakdown of these audience counts. So we have right here number number of device IDs, a number of individuals, a number of households that make up this audience, as well as which devices we can reach this audience on, just offering a fuller picture of audience composition. This level of real-time insight into the targetable makeup of an audience just allows us to be even more intentional with how we should be targeting a specific audience on a campaign.
Great. For us, I know I've always kind of having the ability to see the full library of options within your audience targeting has been a big priority. So moving, as Jess said, beyond just first-party data from your website, lookalike models from your first-party data, or from, let's say, an SEM list or a cookieless ID. That's kind of an opportunity here to see all that within one screenshot, as well as third-party data. And again, those third-party segments are most commonly teed up and recommended during the planning process, which is kind of displayed through a persona. So we look at the traits of an audience, we look at the demographic, the psychographic behavior of those individuals, and then leading into the recommended third-party segments. So now that information sits within the taxonomy. Alex, as we think about any of the functionality within the UI, is there anything you want to highlight?
No, as Jess mentioned, I mean, there's first party, not only website, so like this all visitors is obviously based on all the visitors to the website, but there's also first party CRM lists that have been uploaded here. And then of course, third party, and there's some modeled audiences as well here for this client. And so again, all of those are Trade Desk audiences, and all of those have the ability to see the insights as far as counts. So this is, like Jess said, raw IDs, and then down to the person level, and then down to the household level as well. This distribution by device type is specifically breaking out your ID count, just to clarify there. And then we do have future plans for this page as well, to bring in some additional insight data as far as like interests and different websites that index higher than others.
Okay. Al, let's just speak about the future of this section, if you don't mind. I know today this sits as 3 tabs essentially across the top that have specific profile information in them. As you move towards the future of this view, what do you envision this as?
Yeah, I think this insights page specifically will be beefed up quite a bit. Like I said there, with some geographic insights, some website insights, as well as some interests insights. So it will bring in some similar data to what we used to have from our model partner. And that will be available for all Trade Desk audiences. So for first party, for third party, for modeled as well. So likely this page will get, this tab here will get renamed slightly to be more of like an audience insights. We still currently do support distillery. So some of these audiences you'll see have a audience composition. Really, this is modeled insights. And so we'll probably rename that to make that clearer to our users that these are modeled insights. So this is where you get your demographic information and some behavioral categorical website information as well. And then kind of what we'll get into later is our persona tab. And that's something that we've launched a V1 for, that will also kind of launch a V2 and kind of make that a little more robust as well.
Okay. I think easy way to think about it, audience insights will be the seed of the audience. So the segment that we're looking at, the descriptor of that profile. You get into the model piece. Now we're building a model on that, regardless of what the seed is. The seed could be first party data, could be CRM or website, could even be third-party segments that get modeled if appropriate. And then moving down the line there of how does this persona tie back to the original strategy that we had deployed during our planning process? So it's really more of a compare and contrast of like, here's what we believe that this audience was. Here's how that is evolving throughout the course of the campaign. And then finally having a performance snapshot against that, not just counts, not just distribution of the audience, but now from a media perspective, when ads are delivered to this user or to these users that make up this audience, what does it look like from a media performance standpoint? So really kind of connecting it from planning all the way through campaign delivery. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing those future releases. Just moving on, I know we wanted to highlight a report that was previously leveraged primarily for some of our local marketing or franchise advertisers, but now something that we're going to release more broadly, which is the advertiser cross-channel report. Would you mind just talking through maybe the origination of this report and why it's important, what the value is to customers?
Yeah, so most brands we work with will run multiple campaigns throughout the year across multiple channels and maybe even across multiple years with us, resulting in them sometimes having to analyze their campaigns almost in silos, and at least from a dashboard perspective. We built out this cross-channel report. Like you said, it was originally built for our franchise systems, but we immediately recognized a need and a value for our agency clients as well. So we built this out. That's available at the advertiser or brand level. And this report is a roll up of performance data from all campaigns for each advertiser or brand. And it's across multiple channels, as you could see here. So you have search, social, programmatic, you have digital out of home in here as well. And you could look at historical performance by specific channel, for example. So if you want to filter by just looking at the Google campaign data over the last year, you could do that as well without having to look at campaign by campaign. Or if you only want to look at certain campaigns, you could filter it by just those certain campaigns as well. It's just a very clean, intuitive way to view aggregated performance across multiple campaigns at a high level.
Awesome. Alex, what notes may you add to that if there's anything that Jess didn't touch on?
Yeah, I think, as Jess mentioned, we did have this previously for the client level. And the realization was that for our agency clients, their advertisers are so disjointed, right? Those are different brands. So really, it doesn't make sense. There's not a lot of correlation or synergy between those brands up at the client level for those agency clients. However, obviously, like Jess said, to be able to see multiple years of campaigns all aggregated up together, to be able to cut that by channel, by product, any of those dimensions totally made sense. And so that's when we launched our advertiser level cross channel, as we refer to it. So you can find that within the reporting suite. If you go to any of your advertisers in the drop down here, and then you go to dashboards, that's where you'll see this dashboard populate. From there, obviously, just click in and you'll be able to get into this dashboard that we're speaking about.
Awesome. We'll stick on the topic of reporting. Jess, you want to walk us through what's new with the report builder function within Kampus?
Yeah, for sure. So in addition to, we actually refreshed the user experience a bit in here. This Kampus report builder, this is where you can build out and schedule any sort of custom reporting. It now supports more than just programmatic data. Previously, this only had programmatic in here that pulls in here. You can now create reports using data from Meta, from Google, and digital out of home, as you can see in this dropdown right here. So we know dashboards aren't for everyone. Report builders like this just give users another option to organize and pivot their data in a way that works best for them.
Thanks, Jess. Alex, any other notes on just the user functionality within the tool?
No, functionally, it's pretty similar to how it was before. So you still have the ability to pick individual campaigns or groups of campaigns, declare your dimensions. So we'll look at daily data, cut by campaign, and we'll go a little bit further, cut to the line item. You can then pick your measures. So common measures, impressions, click, spend is what I've added here. Last 30 days, click run, you'll get the data to render here. And it should obviously match the schema that you've declared. And then you can download the data and use it as you wish, but you can also schedule that a data pull. And so you can schedule that daily, weekly, or monthly. And you can schedule that to dump a CSV file or an Excel file. And a lot of clients, what they're using this for is like they've got their own data visualization tool, like a Domo or a TapClicks or a NinjaCat. And so those platforms generally are able to spin up email addresses where they'll receive data and automatically consume that data. So that's a very common use case for our scheduling tool is that using in data visualizations. So you'd come in here, you'd put in your NinjaCat email address, create the schedule, and then that way you've got data coming in and refreshing at a regular cadence.
Awesome. And Jess, I know your team is still very heavily involved in helping clients through that process, but now all being within Kampus, either do it yourself or contact a KORTX account manager and we'll help you out with that process. Perfect. Let's jump back. I know we talked about audiences. We talked about how that has evolved from where we were with Xandr to now with Trade Desk. A big component of our planning process is around identifying audiences. And we believe if you understand your audience and the composition of that audience, both current customers and aspirational customers, that we are in a position to really improve the overall outcome and the efficiency of a media plan and reduce waste. So if we better understand who your audience is, we can then kind of deploy the appropriate campaign messaging, the right media strategy, the right budget allocation, and the right measurement approach or attribution approach to it. So Josh, I know we're taking a look at an example here. Would you mind though just talking a little bit about like where this falls in the process of working with KORTX? So if I go through the RFP process, I don't want to get my proposal, I get to work with a team. Is this coming kind of before the sales process? Is it after the sales process? How do you see this being leveraged by our customer base?
I could see this being used at all portions of the process, but really the persona, I mean, those that work with us are pretty familiar with our concept of personas, first of all, like you said, but it's typically built during the strategy and planning phases of a campaign. And these are insights that surround an audience that are powered by our KORTX intelligence. And then one area that we wanted to enhance with incorporating it in here is just tying these personas, these persona insights to the actual audience that we're targeting in a campaign. And this change just brings our planning process and marries it with our execution process as well as our reporting outputs, just bring it all full circle. So it bringing all of our reporting and insights for an audience into basically just a single place right here. It's just a one-stop shop for everything from an audience perspective.
Cool. Alex, future iterations of this, I know we talked a little bit earlier on about tying media performance to the persona. So we have the persona, we have the appropriate audience that's being targeted within ad platforms, while the ecosystems or the trade desk from a programmatic perspective. Where is this evolving to? What do you see this becoming?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, this persona is associated to an audience which does run in one to many platforms. So the idea is that we would add a performance tab here as well. And then that way you could see performance for that audience within the different platforms, not only for a specific campaign, but in aggregate. So if that's being used within multiple concurrent campaigns, or it's been used, historically quarter over quarter for those different quarter initiative campaigns, you'd be able to see that data in aggregate for that persona/audience. And also be able to drill into see maybe it worked better for a specific campaign or initiative. So you'd be able to surface those insights, and then also potentially see that over time and see if that audience maybe needs to be tweaked or anything like that, if there's been a fall off in performance in recent times.
Great.
This is kind of our V1 of personas, and there is plans for a V2, bring in some additional data here, some images, as well as some platforms to kind of show where that audience is deliverable.
The streaming habits portion there, I think especially in the CTV ecosystem, and we look at the convergence of video from broadcast linear, CTV, now really becoming more of one buying medium, especially when you have new companies that come out and allow you to purchase both within one UI. To dive into the streaming habits a bit deeper, and we think about, yeah, that's great. I understand which platforms people are spending time on, but show me specifically, if I think of FAST, AVOD, SVOD, if I'm looking at a Hulu versus a Pluto versus a Max, I'm sure in your household, you guys have a mix of it too. I mean, we're a household that still has set-top boxes from Xfinity. We use streaming services. We use free streaming services, paid streaming services. And depending on the user in the household, there's a different way to reach that person. So that's where I get really excited about V2 of this, is now starting to think about specifically how does that streaming habit tie into a CTV strategy. Show me the great publisher logos that I'm going to be serving on. Show me the rates that are associated with each plan, and then have that map over into my campaign and all the great reporting that Jess just showed us. So the intent for us is really to cut out that gray space that lives in the CTV ecosystem, because I think there's a lot of folks out there that still kind of hear, yeah, it's premium. It's across premium inventory. And it's kind of lost there. I mean, there's a lot of great things that are done in terms of transparency and showing publisher logos in reporting. It's been a very big initiative of ours that we want to make sure people very clearly understand it. But to have some more flexibility and optionality of going through the planning process and selecting the right CTV package that fits for that audience, that's the tool that we'll look to deploy here in the very near future. So, Al, yeah, I appreciate you quickly highlighting that and what this will end up being very soon. Jess, Al, as we close this out, any other thoughts, comments, any ideas around where you think the future of Kampus is going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited with the migration to Trade Desk. There's a lot of new functionality that exists there that we're looking to figure out how we can best leverage and surface to our clients. So I think there's a lot going to be coming in 2026. Obviously, we've kind of already got a focus on creatives now with the preview. I think we're going to start doing some more things with like creative performance and potentially surfacing creatives that might have decayed as far as performance because they're getting stale, being able to kind of measure different creatives against each other, things like that, as well as obviously a focus on personas. And potentially having a persona comparison page where you can kind of do the same thing and kind of compare different personas all in one view to see how they measure up against each other. And maybe, we can surface that we should shift dollars to one persona over the other because of performance reasons.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. On top of that, I also just want to highlight Campus as a whole, it's been this account management enablement tool for us, and it makes it so that the amount of manual work, having to build out like manual decks and whatnot, which the decks will probably never go away. We'll still have to do them, but everything that we can put in this dashboard just makes it so much easier. The time to get the information in front of a client that's insightful and meaningful, it's just cut down so much by all this automation and all the great work that Alex and his team has been doing.
And I think that's the big takeaway for all of us from an AI perspective at KORTX. It's much more about workforce enablement and workflow enhancement. So less time kind of spent on mundane activities, things that really provide no value strategically. So how do we leverage AI and all the great new tools that are out there to help surface, let's say, anomalies, or let's surface a trend that may go overlooked from a human being or human eye. So that's really the way that we're looking to populate that information. And as you can see, some of that stuff, as Jess mentioned, is starting to make its way directly into the platform. And otherwise, it's your managed service team that's using those tools to better inform you on what's going on. So with that, we really appreciate everybody joining this episode, November of 2025 Campus Product Update. Jess, Alex, thank you both for your time. We'll catch everybody next time.